All right, well, let's just jump into it.
So that's a pretty big deal. There's a lot of rules changing. So I actually think it's probably smart because we're going into a time in our economy right now.
Why is the elimination of partial seller standby notes such a big deal for deal structuring?
Usually no sellers that are selling the business but retaining a small portion of ownership want to personally guarantee.
All right, today I'm here again with Beau Eckstein, and we're going to talk about SBA and other stuff. So, hey, Beau, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. There's some major changes coming along, so it's pretty time sensitive because actually if they're taking place in June, so I'm excited to talk today about some of these changes.
All right, well, let's just jump into it. Can you quickly break down what's changing with SBA acquisition financing on June 1st?
Yeah, so there's a new SOP, so they routinely get updates, and this is called the SOP 5010-8, and this will take effect, I believe, by June 1st. So any deals in the pipeline, if they don't have a E-Trans number from SBA, then it will roll into these new rules, and there's some pretty big changes. So here are some of the changes. Partial standby seller notes. These will no longer be permitted to count towards the buyer's equity injection. So that's a pretty big deal. Essentially, there's a lot of rules changing. So before you could use the equity, the seller could put to carry back some of the down payment, essentially, the equity injection. Well, now they have to do it 50% has to come from the buyer now. So if you're looking at a normal acquisition and you did a 5%, that would be okay, seller carryback, and a 5% equity injection and then 90% bank financing, but it can't be any higher than it anymore. So that's a big change. Rollover seller equity. If a seller retains equity post-close, even below 20%, they must personally guarantee the full SBA loan for 2 years. So that wasn't the case. That's changed. So what that means is if you're doing a partial buy, you're buying into the business, before, if the seller would just retain less than 20%, they didn't have to guarantee the loan. Now, no matter what, they have to guarantee the loan for at least 2 years. So that's a big change coming, right? Because the sellers typically don't mind retaining ownership, but they don't want to have to sign a personal guarantee for the new buyer coming in, and they will. So that's a big difference. So strict 10% equity injection requirement returns for all complete changes of ownership. So you have to come in with this 10% equity, and then multi-step partial buyouts are now ineligible. So what that means is basically you can't, I'm going to buy 60% of the company, then I'm going to buy the additional 40%. That is ineligible now. The other thing is seller notes are only allowed as equity if they're on full standby for the life of the loan. And even then, they may only represent up to half of the required equity injection. So what that means is before it only had to be 2 years, now it has to be the term of the loan, which was generally 10 years on a business acquisition. So those are some of the major changes. There's also there's some good things too, but obviously we've talked about it before. In the past, you could have investors in the business that were not U.S. citizens or permanent residents. No longer. They have to either be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident to be an investor in the deal. So that's wiped out a lot of deals and has made a lot of people shuffle. High net worth borrowers just caught a break. The personal resource test has been eliminated. I think that's been eliminated for a while now. So those are like some of the major changes. There's also a lot of other ones, but those are some of the big ones on the business acquisition side.
Why is the elimination of partial seller standby notes such a big deal for deal structuring?
Well, now, okay, so here's some other things. If you're buying less than 100% of a business, it must be a stock purchase. Asset purchases structures are no longer allowed for these partial buyouts. The seller must personally guarantee the loan for 2 years. So before, usually no sellers that are selling the business but retaining a small portion of ownership want to personally guarantee, right? They want to be done. They want to retire. So that's, I think, the biggest. And I believe all minority investors must also personally guarantee. So anybody that's on the ownership side, even if they own less than 20%, would have to guarantee as well. Now, some of these rules are still have to be unpacked, when they make these changes, but these are pretty impactful changes, because I have some business acquisitions right now, for example, that if we don't get the case number pulled, it's not going to work, because the seller is going to is doing a preferred like an equity rollover. So if we don't get the case number by June 1st, then we'd have to restructure the deal completely, and this is like a $10 million deal. So these changes are huge, massive impact. The other big impact is deals less than 500,000. We always talk about the SBS credit scoring system. Before it was 155 as far as 155 or higher for credit score. Now it's 165. So what this all is telling me is that they're seeing more defaults and they're adjusting. And also, this is a zero subsidized program, meaning the guarantee fees cover the program. The government actually doesn't have to feed this. And I think over the last period, they had waived the guarantee fees, so that's why they're going back to being more stringent. They're going to eliminate some of the loss carryovers that are going to happen. There's going to be more defaults. There are more defaults. So I think that's the important thing to note. I actually think it's probably smart, because we're going into a time in our economy right now that is probably going to cause a lot of hardship for people. And so they're getting ahead of it, because obviously we can't afford to have 1 million defaults on the books. So we have to tighten up guidelines. But it sucks for business buyers, because before it was pretty advantageous to be creative. You could still be very creative, but I think some of these rules hinder some of the deal structuring abilities.
So what would you say is the most important action buyers and sellers should take right now if they're mid-transaction?
So if you have a deal that's hit any of these buckets, you got to get your case, your file number or the E-Trans number before June 1st, or it's going to revert to these new guidelines. So that could blow some deals out of the water. So it's urgency. So either understand, maybe you're not at the point where it matters at this point yet, but you're working on an LOI for a new business acquisition. Understand the deal structuring. There's usually workarounds for everything. Just figure out your deal, contact your lender, or feel free to reach out to our team at bookwithbeau.com, and we'd be happy to meet with you. If you're looking to grow your business, I put together an ebook. It's all about utilizing virtual team members and AI together to 10x production. If you're looking to grow organically without having a massive team and massive overhead, this ebook's for you. It's free. You can go to bizscalingplaybook.com, get your copy. It's got all the tools I use, some prompts, and much, much more. It's an evergreen book. We'll continue to add to it. Get your copy now before it's too late. Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.